Alright, got a quick speed painting underpainting tutorial for my friend Mr. T. Hopefully other people can get some use out of this. What I have is the leftover hooligan boys from the Commando set who I magnetized to go over this rudimentary speed painting tutorial. Now, I did this actually over a year ago, so some of the stuff is a bit fuzzy, but we'll go from what I can remember. Now, you are going to start off with underpainting all your guys, actually just doing a dry brush. Pretty standard. You can find this information all over the internet. I've shown you how to do this. You're fucking up last time. Why don't you just go and find a video to kind of refresh, but get the idea of just it's a light monochromatic look. That sets the basis for your highlights for doing a more, air quotes, advanced paint job. Now in this one you can see that I've actually hit the models with multiple colors from multiple sides. This is a bit of my own take on the Murray method, or there's a bit of an OSL type effect aspect to it, but that's not really what my goal is. You can use this for doing OSL, but it's really more of a way to get much more dynamic paint jobs in a very short period of time. Often works in a lot of subtlety with underpainting, use of those undertones to set a scene, both of color and depth, and it's used quite often in traditional painting, oil painting in particular, to do this because oil paints didn't have a transparency to them. So what you gotta do is you gotta actually plan your underpainting. Now I had these, or the intense model paints, whatever the hell they're called, and their yellow is an excellent intense yellow. Nice, look at that mustard yellow. That's beautiful. And we're gonna mustard up all over the skin on these bad boys. I only went with the one color for the underpainting on this because this whole project was various types of underpainting experiments. In this one I was focusing on using that yellow to get the highlight in a way that would be more smooth and seamless than actually painting it and then layering up from there. I want to get good, vibrant, underpainted colors in. Like I say, get those tones set. So I go in with the transparent layer over top. That sets both the recesses, the midtones, and your highlights, which you can then push farther with whatever you used here as your highlight color, and you may mix that with a bit of the transparent color, you may not, but it gives a much smoother effect and cuts out a lot of steps. Now I'm primarily focusing on the different muscle groups here, because these just tend to be what will stand out. They'd be kind of like your natural highlight points anyways from light. I'm not necessarily highlighting it for light. I like the idea of that this is spots where the skin is a bit thinner and fresher because they're growing and stretching out. I like that kind of look that the skin hasn't darkened up yet because these boys are growing. They're always growing. Now you want to be consistent across all the features, so I have focused on making sure that the ears were highlighted the same way and exposed skin was the same way, because once again these are going to be swapped out parts. This all magnetized, so I want to just kind of look this consistent no matter which boy it goes on, and no matter which part you use. Now with this color you can actually put in a darker magenta, or like something that would signify kind of like a blood into the recesses, like where the blood flow is. That's a very common one for orcs, and for people you personally tend to put that more in the higher raised thin skinned areas. Looks more natural, but for orcs people like to put them in the recesses. Now for these highlight areas you don't have to do yellow on the muscle groups. Pink actually would look very nice for once again some idea of maybe they actually bleed blood, whatnot, or like that thinned out skin. I also like the look of a bit of like pink undertones on these orc commandos, because it really kind of sounds the idea that they're a bit better at infiltrating humans and whatnot, because they might try to pass themselves off. Whether they're their natural tones and everything looks a little bit more natural, that some makeup and some prosthetics or clothing and whatnot, they kind of blend in. But really I'm just focusing on the muscle groups, joints of the fingers, once again personally places that would be near the surface, thinner skin. Now preparing your dominant hue, your dominant color, it's gotta be transparent. I like to use, you can use any sort of contrast colors. I actually like to use a contrast medium and use the air colors from Vallejo. Depending on their color, a lot of them are actually more of an ink based whatnot, and there's no concern about pigmentation causing like loading up pigment and like it selling to the recesses. It ends up being fairly smooth because, like I say, it seems to be more of an ink based, and so it doesn't break with the contrast and with the thinners. A lot of times too much thinner or medium can cause a paint to break, and you can see the separation of the pigments, like the actual physical pigments. When it's more of a liquid or ink base, you don't really have that concern. And we want to go fairly thin on this, because like say, this is really being glazed in over top of everything, like say, because you're going to set the color. Now the contrast medium helps it settle into those recesses, but whereas the contrast medium with the Vallejo ink-based thing, I find it doesn't have as much issue with pooling badly or washing or creating wash marks. So that's another reason I like to go for this. And once again, go on the thinner side, as long as it stays like, and you get coloration on your raised areas, you're fine. If it's too thin, it'll pull away, and then you're just going to get way too dark in the recesses and nothing happening on your highlighted raised areas. But you can always go in and do multiple layers. Now, after that's all dried up, what you want to do for this underpainting aspect is spraying on a tint. So I'm basically going to put a filter on this mall, 2 filters on either side, to basically kind of imply the idea of there's an object source light coming from one side on the malls and a different source light on the other side. Now when you do this, you gotta be heavily diluted. It's gotta be super duper thin, and you want to shoot it in a single direction. If you shoot too much of the mall from different directions, you're gonna lose the effect of it being like kind of like a sourced light. Now you also have to make sure too that you are hitting the correct parts of a mall. So if I'm shooting from the left side of a mall, I also want to make sure that that right foot, if it's forward of the body, that I'm hitting the left side of that right foot. And the arm is going to be the same sort of thing. I'm going to hit the outside of the left arm and the inside of the right arm to help once again sell that idea. Now once you get these colors in place, you can do a follow-up dry brush of metallics or grays, whatnot, onto the weapons, because it really helps then sell a bit of a combination. It's a true metallic metal, non-metallic metal kind of hybrid coloration. So you're selling those reflections on those metallic weapons. And that really also like helps jazz those up in a very quick and easy way without really having to go in and tediously paint something as a non-metallic metal or true metallic metal with variations, and like doing like a hybrid by brush. This is just way quicker. Now you do want to make sure that you are airbrushing this, and not trying to paint it with a paintbrush. The problem with paintbrush is tend to load up unevenly, and you get pooling or spots that aren't getting enough color, too much color. It's a pain in the ass. Airbrush it on. Now this was a shitty old airbrush that I've since replaced, but it at least would spray relatively evenly to get that little layer on, and it dries right away, and then you can push the vibrancy by layering more color on. Now I got very bored of this and wanted to hurry things along, so I pushed the color and put in an opaque like kind of teal color in there, still very thin down, whatnot, and spread that in. Now you can experiment with overlapping areas and working on delineating some spots. You definitely want to have like not the whole thing blended, otherwise the whole thing's pointless, but you do want to delineate this is this section, that's that section of the object source light, and then you can kind of blend the colors, overlap them together. If you make mistakes here, it's fine, because you can either spray in more color or fix it in the next step, which is really putting in your true colors and your highlights. So the heads, magnetizing them and putting them on a little piece of like a metal juice tin bottom, just a really good way to keep everything in one direction, so I could just spray everything like in like 3 minutes, not even. These are sort of little tricks that speed things up a lot for these projects, because doing all these arms and all these faces and painting them from scratch, otherwise it's just going to take way too long for what I call an unsatisfactory result, because you're supposed to be swapping stuff out all the time. So with magnetization, swapping out, you won't have things truly consistent if you paint it traditionally. So this keeps it looking okay. Now the true colors and highlights are like putting in the browns of the backpack, putting in the boots, putting in metallics, putting in any sort of variations that is the correct, air quotes, correct color of the model before there's any object source lighting that was affecting it. And when you put those in, you can either put them in as contrast, once again as washes. You can put them in as opaque highlights, thin highlights, whatever you want, and layer things in to get that more true natural color, so that when someone sees it, they don't see an orange and blue backpack, they see a brown backpack with bits of blue light or red light that might be reflecting off it from either a vibrant light source or an area of the backpack that might be very worn down. The leather might be very polished, shiny, greasy, what have you. Even like the stuff like the metal on the boots and the grenades, I'm not going in and doing like a full paint job on those. It's just a little bit of a Vallejo metal color highlight is loosely put in on that. So once again, you are getting some actual shine and reflection off that, which you would with a bright polished metal. But the rest of it is either the color of the the source lights and or kind of matte and oh, look at all that gross hair. Ugh, pain in the ass. That's the problem with cats. But otherwise, like kind of a matteness that comes with it's orc stuff, so it's gritty. It's not highly manufactured. Also, the commando, so you want to kind of get rid of that polish and take away that shine, so it doesn't give away your position. Now these models about 8% done. They still need some basing on them. Finish some eyes, do some more highlighting. They're good enough for the table, right? So these knobs, these boys, the magnetized ones, maybe 2 hours once they're magnetized to get them to the point that they are now. Very quick, very simple, but with an overall decent looking paint job for the amount of time and effort you're putting into it. I'd be okay slapping these down on the table. I'd be okay seeing someone slap them down on the table across from me. It's fine for the amount of time I put into it. I know I can always go in and touch them up, but I did this over a year ago, and I don't think I'm going to go in and touch them up anymore, besides basing them if I'm going to play with them, or put them on a display for some reason. I'd probably do a bit more work, but I also don't believe in really going in and doing more work on existing finished models.